Well, with that said, I'd like to turn to quick tips tonight. And instead of Paul Thompson or Ted Becker, we have a guest doing that tonight. Martin Brechbiel, MMR, has a quick tip that he'd like to share with us. Martin, welcome. Thanks so much for doing this.
I generally glaze all the windows in all my models, unless I have a really good excuse not to. And I really like using glass. You know, the microscope glass slide slip covers, and cutting those is a lot of fun. But there are sometimes models where that just doesn't work, or it's just too much trouble or too much pain. And you fall back on acetate, or in this case, I prefer Lexan, which you can get from Clover House. You get it in 5 or 10 thousandths thickness, and it's pretty stable to almost every kind of adhesive. But you still got to cut it. And that's where this comes in. This is going to be fairly short because it's really about the tool. But here's why I didn't want to glaze everything with glass, because all these windows these are actually curved. And cutting that many curved glass, double curves, you know, even with a good diamond tip scribe, which I happen to have, even that's a bit of a challenge that I don't want to take on. So I went back to the Lexan and thought, well, I've got a lot of windows to glaze. It's a lot of cutting. There are a lot of them the same. I wonder if I could mass produce this in some way, cut strips out and just cut them the size. And you know, you can do that with a ruler and a straight edge and cutting surface, and measure and cut. Measure twice, cut once, or measure 3 times, cut twice, get it wrong 4 times, go back and cut it right, cut it long, cut it short. And then I remembered I had one of these little gadgets laying around. Little miniature paper cutter. Well, it's actually not a paper cutter. It's actually a tool that stamp collectors use to cut the mounts for those expensive collectible stamps that they like to use, which are 2 layers of Mylar, and that's about 5 thousandths or so. And I thought, well, if I cut my stuff down to a certain width, I've got a couple of inches here. If I cut it down to 4 inches, I can slice off pieces really fast to the width I want without having to really look at it too carefully, and just snip it down, just like the giant paper cutter that they keep warning you about. Don't stick your fingers in there, stupid, or you're going to cut your finger off. Well, there's no danger of this. It's your material slides right under this. There's a guard over here for measuring out how far you want to cut it. So I found this worked out perfectly fine, and I was able to glaze all those windows really quickly. Still had to cut the curved part by hand, but you know, a little bit of time and trouble saved is something saved and less trouble. And now if I could just find something to cut curves smoothly and consistently in mass production, it would be really handy. So that's what this is. It's a guillotine by Shogard. They're about 30 bucks. And if you're going to build a lot of stuff and glaze stuff with a lot of styrene or Lexan or Mylar or whatever it is, particularly if you're into larger scales, I think it's a worthwhile little gadget to have laying around. And that's all I got for you, Jim.
Well, Martin, I really do appreciate you sharing this with us. I've never heard of that tool before. I'm not a stamp collector. That may be why, but I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.